Alright, first of all, I'm dead serious about this. One thing you might have already noticed about my channel is that I don't do clickbait titles. They're pretty standard and boring, and whatever you see in the title is most likely what you're getting in the video. And don't get me wrong, guys, I'd love to clickbait you guys someday with buzzwords like broken or OP or secretly top tier, because that's probably gonna get me more views and all. But let's face it, man, I'm not a very good YouTube actor, so I won't be able to sell it anyway, so I gotta stay honest. With all that being said, since the title says this is a discussion of all the gold fighters, that is exactly what we're doing in this video. What is up, guys, and this is a special video where I briefly discuss every single gold fighter in the game as of update 4.3. So I first need to explain in detail how it has come to this. By the way, this is going to be a long one, so buckle up. You see, I've purposely been avoiding this topic for a while because discussing and assessing gold fighters is a lot more complex than it looks, and I believe requires a deeper understanding of the game. And I'm guessing at this point, some of the more perceptive viewers might be wondering, why did I not have this problem with silvers? Well, the answer to that lies in their base stats. Silvers have considerably lower base stats than golds and diamonds, so it's virtually impossible for all of them to scale well into the late game. Silvers have to clear multiple conditions to be considered late game viable. The first condition is to make up for the low base stats with a great stat distribution. The second condition is to have a really powerful signature ability that complements the respective stat distribution, or a signature ability so strong that it doesn't even care about base stats. A great example of this is Resident Evil. Being a silver, he has lower base stats than the gold and diamond big bands, but his base stats are heavily skewed towards HP. He also has a very powerful defensive signature ability. These two things in combination helps him overcome the low stat total and makes him worth evolving to diamond. Another good example is Killjoy. Her ability to revive two teammates is independent of her base stats, so it doesn't really matter if she has lower stats than the gold and diamond Valentines. She scales well into the late game simply because her double revive effect is extremely powerful, and that alone is enough to make her worth evolving to diamond. So these conditions keep the list of late game viable silvers short enough for me to make a video that showcases at least most of them. But with gold fighters, it's a completely different story. They all have relatively high base stats, beaten out only by the natural diamonds, which means they all scale very well into the late game. It's really just a matter of prioritization, because there will be golds that you will want to evolve sooner than others. So now you're probably thinking, then why not just make a video about those golds? Well, the honest answer is because I don't trust you guys. I need to minimize viewer bias, because let's face it, if I made a video about like top 5 gold fighters or even top 10, hell, even a top 20, a lot of you guys will leave with the impression that the fighters not mentioned in the video aren't that good. And it could lead to some potentially stupid decisions like sacrificing these golds or using them as evolution fodder even if you only have one of them. And honestly, I can't have that because I really do believe that there will come a point when all golds are going to be eventually worth evolving. So that's a dilemma I've been facing, guys. You all want a video about golds worth investing in, and I get YouTube comments, private messages, like from everywhere asking me, hey, I have this and that and this, which one's worth investing in? And I'm just sitting here thinking, well, all of them. So it's checkmate, guys. I don't see any other way. I have to literally discuss every gold in the game. So let's get to it. Now here's what I'm gonna do. I won't do fighter spotlights like in previous videos. I'm just going to go straight to the catalog and go over every single gold one by one. So I'll tell you how the discussion format's gonna go. I'll first tell you if the fighter is more for offense, defense, or in rare cases both. Then I will say if they are either high, mid, or low priority. So high priority fighters are the ones you want to evolve as soon as you can. Mid priority are the ones you want to evolve if you don't have any of the high priority fighters or if you've already evolved all of them. And low priority fighters are the ones you want to save evolving for last. By the way, there will be a lot of times where I will place fighters in between these tiers. Like for example, some of them will be somewhere between mid and high, others will be between low and mid. Alright, so I need to bring this up as early as now. My prioritizations maybe based on actual facts about the fighters, but are in the end a result of my personal perception of their overall value. What this means is, if another player for one reason or another sees less or more value in what a particular fighter brings to the table, then their rating will be either lower or higher in priority than mine. And this is normal, guys. It would actually be a lot weirder if everyone agrees with everything I say. There will be takes that you will either outright disagree with or maybe be a little too inexperienced to have a say in yet. And this is fine. The important thing is that I properly relay to viewers why I value each fighter a certain way. This is actually one of the advanced topics I wanted to discuss after the newbie guide, which is the concept of value in Skullgirls Mobile. So consider this video a sneak peek of the application of that concept. So at this point, guys, I would suggest getting a pen and paper or a digital notepad and start taking down notes as I discuss. This discussion is going to apply a lot of non-basic concepts, which is why it's not even a part of the newbie guide. One last thing about the catalog, guys, the signature abilities displayed are not fully upgraded yet, so take note of that. There's also no display of what the fighter's base stats are when evolved and leveled to max, so I will just mention their stats in passing if the need arises during the discussion. But I will probably discuss stats more in the context of distribution and descriptive terms rather than just throwing random numbers at you guys. So it looks like we're starting with the Beowulfs, and first up is Dragon Brawler. So he is definitely an offensive fighter, and I put him somewhere between mid and high priority. That's because in prize fights, I put him somewhere around mid priority, and for rift battles, I put him at high priority. Dragon Brawler has a lower base attack than Wolfsbane in general, but he has a very high damage ceiling, especially for super late game players who are able to invest in a lot of crit rate to maximize his abilities. Dragon Brawler also doubles up as a utility fighter because of precision. Precision hits do not activate signature abilities, so when timed correctly, he can, for example, kill Last Hope and Immoral Fiber without much worry. Again, mid to high priority. Alright, next up we have Freedom Fighter. His base stats are more skewed towards HP, and the first half of his signature ability activates when at half health, so this points him more towards a defensive role. He's actually a much better defender than people give him credit for. He's a water type, so he benefits from the Frost Armor Catalyst, and if you equipped him with Wolf Shoots, the AI can get a little scary. However, there are a lot of better water defenders at Gold, so I overall put him somewhere between low to mid priority. And one last thing, I know some people will insist that he is more of an attacker because of his ability to stun lock special spamming AI, but remember what I said about stat distribution. His stats are mostly funneled towards HP, which makes Dragon Brawler and Wolfsbane much better options for offense. And speaking of Wolfsbane, he's our next fighter. Unlike Dragon Brawler, you don't need to invest in any special stats to maximize his damage output, just the usual attack, meter gain, and piercing, and his signature abilities are very straightforward and powerful. I consider him to be high priority overall. But I do want to say, if we're talking strictly rift battles, I personally use Dragon Brawler a lot more than I use Wolfsbane. And in case it's not obvious yet, yes, he is an offensive fighter. Then finally we have Weekend Warrior. He has the exact same base stats as Freedom Fighter, and his signature abilities activate when at half HP, which gives him mostly defensive buffs, so this obviously makes him a defender. In addition, he is also a light type fighter, which means he benefits greatly from the light catalysts, which are very powerful in this current meta. However, he suffers from a similar problem as Freedom, where there are better choices when choosing light defenders. So like Freedom Fighter, he's somewhere between low to mid priority. Alright, so we're done with Beowulf. Let's move on to Big Band. Alright, Private PP. So don't let the stun fool you guys. His base stats are skewed heavily towards HP, so don't even think about using him as an attacker. So believe it or not, most of the value of his signature ability comes from his natural resistance to debuffs. And a tanky fighter with a natural debuff resistance is a really powerful defender on paper. However, one thing that holds him back is that he has no natural way to stack armor the same way that Resident Evil and Heavy Metal can. Since armor rating only activates after 10 hits, and the armor node has been completely removed from Rift, his place in the meta has fallen off quite a bit. For now, I currently put him somewhere between mid to high priority as a defender. But I will say, if they reintroduce the armor mod in Rift or release new catalysts that can consistently give him armor, then he will definitely be a high priority fighter. Alright, so next up is G.I. Jazz. You know, I never understood why people hated him so much. He has a very high HP pool with a very high impact signature ability. Well, it should be high impact because it only happens once per fight. Being a fart type, he works well with the Into Thin Air catalyst. I personally like him as a solo defender so that he doesn't get the option to tag out while benefiting from buffs. And yeah, I do know that it will open him up to certain counters, but that's the point of defense, guys. In Rift, you want to force counters out of people so that they don't get to use them again in other parts of the base. In any case, I think G.I. Jazz is a perfectly decent defender, and I'm very happy to consider him a mid-priority fighter. Okay, next up we have Megasonic. I've already talked about Megasonic in the 4.3 patch notes discussion because he got a buff, and my stance hasn't changed. His signature ability actually pulls him in two directions. He has the Enrage and the Heal that's supposed to make him a decent attacker, but also has access to Thorns to give him some teeth on defense. The problem is, it's very rare for you to need both at the same time. At the end of the day, Resident Evil is still a better defender, and Epic Sax is a way better attacker. Overall, I put him somewhere between low to mid priority. And speaking of Epic Sax, well, there's not much to say honestly. He has very high raw damage output, which makes him an absolute beast in prize fights. He is a bit less useful in Rift offense, however. A good Rift offense needs more than just raw damage. You can also use him as a defender because of the light type, but he has a lot less defensive tools in his signature abilities compared to other big bands. So overall, I put him somewhere between mid to high priority. But hey, if you're focusing on just looking for a prize fight carry, I would absolutely consider him a high priority fighter. Alright, Cerebellus are up next. Spoiler alert guys, all 4 of these golds are high priority fighters in my book. So let's start with Harlequin. I would consider her the highest priority fighter among the 4 golds, and I am very close to giving her some special top priority status. She's just that good. See, a lot of what makes Cerebella in general really strong is her access to the Merry-Go-Rilla and Pummel Horse special moves in conjunction with her upper hand marquee. In this game, the ability to reduce your opponent's meter without using debuffs or blockbusters is very powerful and very rare. Harlequin not only has these tools at her disposal, but her signature ability also reduces the cooldown and increases the damage of those 2 specials. She is an all-purpose offensive juggernaut, and there's absolutely no way she isn't a high priority fighter. Alright, next up is Brain Freeze. Her stats skew more towards HP, and she has damage reduction in her signature ability, which makes her more of a defender than an attacker. Now remember when I was discussing Freedom Fighter and I said that there are better gold water defenders out there? Brain Freeze is definitely one of them. Her signature ability is a lot more unique than you think. Her damage reduction does not rely on buffs, which sets her apart from conventional defenders that rely on armor. This means conventional counters to defenders like Curse or buff removal does nothing to stop her signature ability from getting value. The only way to prevent this is by reducing combo hits, which funnily also reduces the damage she takes, and Hex, which is a debuff that isn't always readily available. Stacking Frost Armor on top of it gives her 2 sources of damage reduction and makes her an absolute defensive beast. This makes her undoubtedly a high priority defender. And hey, she's no slouch on offense either, but honestly, she mostly only hits hard when using her against fire types. Next up, we have Armed Forces. She's another defensive Bella with an HP-oriented stat pool. She is pretty underrated nowadays because people are turned off by the low odds of 5% to proc her buffs. And it's kinda hard to blame them because once upon a time, the buffs lasted as long as 15 seconds, which has been recently reduced to 10. But honestly, with the Thin Air Catalyst, her high HP pool, and the high impact of a combo of unflinching and armor, I still consider her a defensive staple. You can even say she has offensive potential, especially against water types. But, you know, Toad Warrior just fills that role much better. Overall, call me old-fashioned, but I still see Armed Forces as a high priority defender. But I will say guys, when choosing between Brain Freeze and Armed Forces for defense, I would put Brain Freeze slightly ahead because Frost Armor is just a really good catalyst right now. Alright, lastly we have Criminal Mind. She might actually have a higher damage ceiling than Harlequin, but with more conditions to fulfill. Deathmark means you have to invest in crit, and her ability to inflict bleed might occasionally backfire thanks to ICU and Bloodbath. Nonetheless, she still has most of the offensive tools that make Harlequin such a powerful fighter, and she also has access to Thorns, which makes her a pretty decent defender as well. Now, what makes her version of Thorns a more defensively viable option than Megasonic's Thorns is that she can gain her Thorns when hit, while Megasonic can only gain his when blocking. This makes Criminal's Thorns much harder to avoid. Overall, the combined value she brings on both offense and defense definitely makes her a high priority fighter. Alright, let's move on to the doubles, and sweet baby Jeebus, there are 5 Elizas to talk about. Well, it's too late to stop now, guys. So let's start with Rainbow Blight. Now, one of the debuffs she inflicts when transmuting is Hex, which automatically skyrockets her market value. So Hex is pretty hard to come by, and the fact that she can inflict it just by holding block is pretty nutty. Combine that with a Chaos Marquee, and she's definitely a high priority attacker. Alright, so thank God that was pretty straightforward. Alright, next up we have Immortal Fiber. She is primarily a defender, and a very good one at that. The very threat of the self-destruct damage already secures her spot as a high priority defender. Okay, so Immortal Fiber is a perfect case study to discuss the concept of defense in Rift. Now, Rift defenders don't necessarily have to outright beat your opponent to be considered good. The most you want from them is to shave points off your opponent via health loss, burning the clock, or forcing your opponent to make adjustments in their offense to play around them. Immortal Fiber automatically does her job simply by existing in your base. If your opponent chooses to tank the self-destruct, they will lose out on health points. If they decide to play around it with Hex or Precision, then this forces occasionally awkward roster adjustments that can lead to less reliable results. If they choose to tank the self-destruct and try to heal off the damage, then this could eat up more of the clock. And once in a while, if your health stacking is high enough, she can even take someone with her and deny the no-death bonus. Overall, I consider Immortal Fiber a high priority defender who only gets more dangerous the more HP you give her. Next up is Evergreen Evil. She's a defender and support type fighter, and her ability to both protect herself with Thorns and regen and cleanse herself of debuffs makes her a huge pain to try and counter. Hex does the trick, of course, but at that point, if you're forcing Hex out of your opponent, then she's already doing her job. Her signature ability also has immense synergy with the new and improved Volatility Marquee because it makes the buffs last even longer. Let's not forget her support capabilities on offense, further enabling buff-dependent attackers like Primed, Jhin, Phantom Threads, and many others. She is overall a high priority defender and support. Alright, so last double, and certainly not least, we have Xenomorph. She is a game-warping abomination that reduces offense to a simple game of probabilities and peekaboo. Once upon a time, Xenomorph was beyond the concept of priority. She's the first fighter I truly considered to be meta-defining. It came to a point where most of the upper ranks of Rift were almost predetermined by who owned Xenomorph. My 2 legend titles were off the back of abusing broken catalysts and Xeno doom cheesing. And hey, when a fighter carries someone like me all the way to the top, you know she's insane. Fortunately today, her place in the meta is in a much more stable and acceptable position. That's because a lot of emerging defensive staples like Last Hope and Plot Twisted have devalued the time investment on the Doom strategy. In addition, the rise in popularity of the Last Words and lightweight catalysts also did a great job in keeping Doom cheese in check. However, this ability is still left relatively unchecked in prize fights, which just allows her to reach absurdly high streaks with relative ease, and she can still be used to absolutely punish and dismantle Rift bases that have not been built to devalue the most high-impact debuff in the entire game. Again, this might be an old-fashioned take, but I give Xenomorph a top priority status. Alright, so I think this is a good place to end the video. I mean, it was pretty dumb of me to think that I could fit the entire gold roster discussion into one video. I mean, I probably can. I can talk all day, but come on guys, this isn't Skullgirls Mobile the movie. I'm not gonna let you guys sit through this for an hour. So here's what I'm gonna do. I will divide this into a 3-part series. Part 2 will cover the next 5 groups of fighters in the catalog, and Part 3 will cover the last 5. And after that, I will explain how you can integrate this discussion into your decision making. I think some of you still don't know how exactly you should apply the things you've learned today, but hey, it's probably because we're only 1/3 done. Stay tuned for parts 2 and 3. Till then, thanks for watching.